At a convey years old, I thought I had learned everything about people. I was wrong. Looking back, the deepest wounds in my life were not caused by strangers. They came from people I trusted without question. Today, I want to tell you about the first kind of person who quietly destroys many older lives, often without us realizing it until it's too late. For most of my life, I believed that family would always stand by family. That belief cost me more than money. It cost me peace. Many years ago, when I was still running my small business, I had a relative who always spoke to me with great respect. Every time he visited, he praised my hard work, my generosity, and my character. He made me feel valued. At first, he only asked for small favors, a little financial help here, a little support there. And because I loved my family, I never hesitated. Whenever he called, I answered. Whenever he needed help, I helped. I told myself that this is what good people do. But slowly, something changed. I noticed that he only appeared when he needed something. When life was going well, I never heard from him. When I faced difficulties, he was nowhere to be found. Yet whenever he had a problem, somehow my phone would ring again. Still, I ignored the signs. I convinced myself that family deserves patience. Years passed. The requests became larger. The promises became weaker. And one day, I realized something painful. He didn't value me. He valued access to me. There is a difference. A person who loves you wants your presence. A person who uses you wants your resources. That realization hit me harder than any financial loss. Because money can be earned again, trust is much harder to rebuild. The most dangerous thing about people like this is that they rarely look selfish. They often look helpless. They know exactly how to make you feel guilty for saying no. They know which emotional buttons to press. And older people are especially vulnerable because many of us fear losing relationships. So we keep giving and giving and giving until one day we discover that the relationship existed only because we were giving. I learned this lesson very late in life. And the second type of person I met was even more dangerous, because unlike this relative, he didn't ask for money directly. He wanted something far more valuable. I used to think danger always comes with noise. I was wrong. Some of the most dangerous people in life come quietly, smiling, and offering help when you are most vulnerable. This is the second type of person I discovered in my late years. A person who never directly asks for your wealth, but slowly positions themselves around it until you no longer control it. It happened during a period when my life was already changing. My health was not as strong, and managing daily responsibilities had become harder for me. That is when this man entered my life. He was not a stranger, he was a neighbor. At first he seemed like a blessing, always polite, always available. He would say things like, "Don't worry, uncle, I'm here to help you." And when someone speaks like that in old age, it feels like relief. Slowly, he started helping with small tasks, bank visits, paperwork, calls that I found difficult to handle. I trusted him because he made life easier. But what I didn't realize was that convenience can sometimes hide control. Over time, he became familiar with my routines. He knew when I went to the bank, when I received payments, and even when I was confused or tired. And that is when subtle suggestions started appearing. "Uncle, I can handle this for you. It's better if I keep these documents safe. You don't need to stress about these details." At first it sounded like care, but later I understood it was something else. It was positioning. He was slowly placing himself between me and my own decisions. And the most dangerous part? I allowed it. Because when you are tired, you don't always question help. You accept it. One day I noticed something strange. Small financial details didn't match my memory. Nothing dramatic at first, just small gaps, easy to ignore, easy to explain away. That is how these people work. They never break the wall in one hit. They remove one brick at a time. And because everything still looks fine, you don't notice the damage until it is too late. When I finally questioned him, he had perfect answers ready. Too perfect. And strangely, I felt guilty for even doubting him. That is their real skill. They don't just take control of your things, they take control of your doubt. And once you start doubting yourself instead of them, the game is already lost. I wish I had seen this earlier, because by the time I understood his real intention, he was already deeply involved in parts of my life I thought were safe. But the worst was still to come, because the third type of person didn't enter my life quietly. He entered like a blessing. The third person did not feel like a threat at all. In fact, he felt like relief. When life becomes difficult in old age, we start praying for help in any form. And sometimes, help arrives in a way that looks almost too perfect. That is exactly how this third type of person entered my life. Someone who appeared kind, respectful, and almost sent by God in my most helpless phase. I was around 74 years old at that time. My health was not stable. Simple tasks like going to the bank, handling documents, or even remembering small financial details had become exhausting for me. That is when he came into my life, a young relative, soft-spoken, extremely polite, always respectful to the point that it felt almost unreal. He would say, "Uncle, don't worry, I will take care of everything." And he did. At first, it felt like a blessing I didn't deserve. He handled my bank work. He managed paperwork. He organized my small financial tasks. And slowly, I started depending on him more than I realized. Dependence is silent. It doesn't announce itself. It grows quietly in the background while you convince yourself that everything is under control. Soon he had access to details I never thought I would share with anyone. My accounts, my documents, my financial records. And because he always behaved so respectfully, I never questioned it. That is the most dangerous disguise, respect that hides intention. But over time, small things started to feel off. Unexplained transactions, small errors that didn't match my understanding. Moments where I felt confused but had no clear proof. And when I asked him, he never became defensive. Instead, he smiled and said things like, "You probably forgot, Uncle. Don't worry, I handled it." And somehow, I started doubting myself more than I doubted him. That is how control slowly shifts, not through force, but through confusion. And in old age, confusion is more dangerous than fear. Because when you start losing trust in your own memory, you stop asking questions, you stop checking, you stop resisting. And that is exactly what happened. I thought I was being helped, but in reality, I was being slowly replaced in my own life decisions. By the time I realized the full truth, the damage was not just financial, it was emotional. Because betrayal hurts more when it wears a familiar face. And just when I thought I had seen the worst in people, I met the fourth one. And this one didn't want my money. He wanted my faith. The fourth type of person was the most dangerous of all, because he never looked like a threat. In fact, he looked like peace. When you are old, tired, and emotionally broken from life, you don't just lose energy, you start searching for meaning. And in that phase, anything that promises healing feels like hope. That is exactly how the fourth man entered my life. He called himself a spiritual guide. Soft voice, calm face, always speaking about God, destiny, and healing. When I first met him, I was going through one of the darkest phases of my life. I had already experienced disappointment from people I trusted. My confidence in people was already weak, and my heart was searching for something to hold on to. He understood that very quickly. He didn't ask for money immediately. He asked for trust. He said, "Your pain is not ordinary. It is spiritual. Only special rituals can heal this." And in that moment, I wanted to believe him more than I wanted to question him, because pain makes people easy to guide. At first, it was small things: a donation for prayers, a contribution for temple work, a special ritual for peace of mind. Each time I gave, I felt temporary relief, like maybe I was doing the right thing. But then the requests grew, and with every new problem I shared, a new solution appeared, and that solution always had a cost attached to it. Slowly I realized something painful. My suffering had become his system, my fear had become his income, and my hope had become his business. That realization broke something inside me more than any financial loss ever could. Because when someone uses your faith, it doesn't feel like cheating. It feels like betrayal of the soul. And the worst part? I defended him at first, because when you are emotionally invested in belief, you protect it even when it hurts you. It took me time to accept the truth. He was not a healer. He was a strategist. A man who understood that broken people don't ask questions. They search for relief. And I was one of them. By the time I stepped away from him, I had already learned the final lesson of my life. These 4 types of people were not accidents. They were patterns. They appear in every life, just in different forms. And if you don't learn to recognize them early, they don't just take your money, they take your peace. Now, at the end of my life, I understand one simple truth. Kindness without awareness is not strength, it is vulnerability. And I wish I had learned that much earlier. Because peace in old age is not built on how much you give to others. It is built on how wisely you protect yourself. And if you are hearing this today, maybe it is not too late for you. Learn to see clearly, trust slowly, and never let desperation make decisions for you. Because once peace is gone, no amount of money can buy it back.